تفضل.
So we keep the kids down, inshallah. Keep them.
MashaAllah, fast.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Obviously, first and foremost, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our gathering one that is blessed and one that is done sincerely for Him and only for Him. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make this blessing a means of rectifying our worldly lives as well as our lives to come in the hereafter. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His beautiful names and perfect attributes to heal all of the sick and ill Muslims. We also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve them from debt and from the burden of owing. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help the Muslims who are oppressed and persecuted wherever they may be throughout His earth, and to give them the strength and the sabr and the courage and the ability to overcome their enemies and adversaries. Last but not least, I ask Him subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward you well and give you beneficial information, beneficial knowledge, and wisdom, and to accept your sacrifices for coming out, showing your support, showing your love, showing your respect, listening, benefiting, and waiting. May Allah Azza wa Jalla give you both the spiritual reward and the tangible fa'idah. Allahumma ameen. With that being said, my topic is going to be on the history of Christmas, or the dark history of Christmas. And before I get into this topic and its importance and why I chose it, etc., a few years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we did a lecture at Masjid Mujahideen in West Philly on Western holidays in light of Kitab and Sunnah. Western holidays in light of Kitab and Sunnah, in which we mentioned many beneficial points and principles regarding a holiday, an Eastern holiday, a Northern holiday, a Southern holiday, let alone a Western holiday, in light of the Quran and the Sunnah, and what the Muslim should or shouldn't do, can or cannot do, what is the stance of the Muslim regarding these holy days, whether it be Christmas, whether it be Thanksgiving, whether it be Halloween, whether it be St. Patrick's Day, whether it be St. Valentine's Day, or any other type of holiday. Anything which is a day in which is called a holiday, a festive day. All right? So inshallah ta'ala, please go back to the lecture series, whereas many things that we're not going to mention tonight have been mentioned there with detail for lack of time. Then obviously there are going to be a few overlapping points, and we're going to mention a few fawaid again because they're very extremely important. But the whole entire systematic breakdown, you have to go back to that lecture. Also, bid'nillahi ta'ala, the recent khutbah that we did on Christmas, the day of Mirza, also Halloween, and also Thanksgiving. We've done fa'idas and khutbahs on all of those major Western holidays. And if you want the total benefit and the total understanding from my humble point of view, then it's best to take it all of those lectures and khutbahs as a whole. What you don't get in this one, you get in that one. What's mentioned in brief here will be mentioned in detail there. Everyone understand this?
Yes.
Inshallah ta'ala. So that being said, the concept of history, we need a few basic ground rules before we move forward with regards to history. And the first ground rule is that history is broken down into two words. His story. The story of a person. And oftentimes a person puts in a book or in a documentary or in a lecture or makes it a standardized religion or language or culture of one's country based off of what they think and feel and how they want it to go. So everything that you read of history is not always factual. And oftentimes history is his story. The story of the victor. The story of the most wealthy. The story of the most conniving and slimy, who had the lack of integrity to make a total false fabrication. And this is what Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions in Surah Al-Kahf about those righteous believers, those young men who left their homes, left their parents, left their families out of fear of oppression and fitna to worship idols. And they were caused to sleep for that very long time in the caves. And then the people, they discovered them and they found them. And they differed over how many of the people of the Kahf there actually were. قَالَ الَّذِينَ غَلَبُوا عَلَى أَمْرِهِمْ لَنَتَّخِذَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ مَسْجِدًا. Allah says, and those who won at the end, those who had the most power, those who conquered, those who were victorious at the end, they said, indeed, we will build a shrine over their graves. Indeed, we will make a place of worship, a masjid over that cave. So the people in the cave, they never worshipped idols. That's why they went to the cave. They ran from the worshiping of idols and deities and gods and goddesses and spirits. But those who won, in other words, the people of the dunya, the people of power and influence, they made their version of the history. So there are many saints today, and many shrines and places of worship that are made for people that were against that. But that's not the version that you get, because the story is going to be of him, his story. If I have the most money, or the most strength, or the most audaciousness, I will rewrite it and say this is why he died, and this is what he supported, and this is, and so on and so on and so forth. It's a very important principle, is that everything is not factual of what you may read in a book or what you may hear in a lecture. So with that being said, you have to scratch beneath the surface, and you have to go to an unorthodox source to get the true, actual, factual information of history and not his story. Everyone understand this? And something which is very ironic with regards to Christmas and other holidays, let's say for example St. Patrick's Day. Who was St. Patrick and what did he do? St. Patrick and Christmas go hand in hand. If you read the true story of St. Patrick and what he stood for and how the people falsely celebrate his day to this day, is the same concept of Christmas. That's ground rule number one. Ground rule number two is that historical information which is factual never needs to be apologetic, and it never needs to be watered down, and it never needs to be toned down to appease the people's emotions and feelings and thoughts, or what they've heard about all of these years. The facts never need to apologize. All right. Number three, and Allah Azza wa Jalla, He clearly mentions this in the Quran, that if the truth were to follow their desires, the heavens and the earth would all be ruined. And everything in the heavens and the earth would be ruined if the truth had followed the people's lusts, what they want, how we want to hear it, how we want to accept it. So the truth does not apologize to the falsehood. The batil does not take a bow to the batil, to the haqq. It doesn't compromise to the falsehood. Rather, the falsehood is supposed to bend towards the truth. Point number three is factual information. That's real factual information. It doesn't necessarily have to be a doubt, something doubtful, or a conspiracy theory. All right. And oftentimes, people of falsehood, they give bad names and titles to proofs and evidences. So if they believe something, and you come with another type of belief or another piece of information and say, that's a doubt, that's shubuhat. Or they'll say, that's a conspiracy theory. Well, maybe I have the haqq, and what you're following is doubtful, and it isn't proven. Everyone understand this? So facts can be called doubts, and doubts can be called what? Facts. And it can always go on both sides. This is the truth, this is what you have to do. And anyone who says otherwise, he clearly mentioned his proofs and evidence, said those are doubts. I can easily say what? The opposite. I have the truth with me, and with you, you have the what? Doubts. Everyone understand this? Or the concept of a conspiracy theory. They say, oh, that's not true. You're just making that up. You're trying to sound like this. Oh, you're going too deep. You're exaggerating, so on and so forth. And I can easily say the what? The opposite about you. You're trying to cover something up and trying to prove your version of the story. So these are certain ground rules when it comes to history in general, let alone to this lecture. Bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to break things down, when we talk about Christmas, there's two ways of looking at Christmas. We can look at Christmas from a religious standpoint, and we look at Christmas from a worldly standpoint. And also we can look at Christmas from the concept of history. We have world, we have religion, and we have history. 2 or 3 different views with regards to this holiday called Christmas. Now, it's a well-known fact, and it's a historical fact, that one of the strongest countries and the largest empire that ever existed in the modern age was that of Great Britain. And Great Britain, it conquered many, many, many lands. So many lands that it was called the nation or the empire over which the sun never sets. Meaning, if it's nighttime here, it's daytime there. That one way or another, in one country, one continent, one time zone, there is the flag of Great Britain flying in the wind. That's how much land it had conquered. And we obviously know that the concept of the colonial age, conquering countries, subjugating civilizations and nations, there are many factors involved. And from the factors involved is religion. It's religion. One of the things that justified the treatment of those people was religion. Is that your religion is paganism, is heathenism. We have the Holy Cross with us, Christian, and the Christian and Christianity is the way of civilized people. All right? And those who worship idols, and they made shirk, they were subjugated because of the cross and the superiority of the cross and the Christians' understanding of monotheism. So this is the modern version of history, which is true. But there was only a couple hundred years ago, if not more than 100 years ago, in which that place called Great Britain, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and those countries, they themselves were pagans and heathens. And they worshipped idols and spirits and gods and goddesses. And they were upon shirk and kufr. And that which was total blasphemy with regards to their modern Christian faith. Everyone understand this? But that's not the version that you get. We've always been civilized. We've always been Christians. We've always been followers of the cross. And these savage, barbaric, inhumane nations have always been what? Idol worshippers. Everyone understand this? But that's not the actual fact. That's not the fact. So you say, where am I going with this now? It's a direct connection between Christmas and between the history of these nations. And it's not just the UK, the modern concept of the UK, Great Britain, Germany, France, Italy. All of these Christian nations at one point in time were upon shirk. They were upon idol worship until they were officially converted to Christianity or Catholicism. Everyone with me so far? So with that being said, where does Christmas come from? And is Christmas a Christian festival or celebration? Or does it have elements of paganism and idolatry that either remained from the time before they converted, or things in which they compromised to bring more pagans and idolaters into the way of Christianity? Everyone understand the question? Two things we have now. The first is traces of shirk that remain in Christianity and that remain in Christian holidays. That's number one. Things that weren't eradicated fully. Number two, things that the Christians themselves in Western Europe, they knew was acts of paganism and idolatry, but they turned a blind eye. Or they mandated it for the purpose of allowing more pagan people to come into Christianity. And it's too difficult, it's too hard to say that you have to get rid of this holiday or this celebration. And you can't say this and you can't do that. They will not accept it. They'll never ever become Christians. It's too rigid, it's too strict. So therefore we have to open our doors more and allow more of their pagan, heathen ways in under the name of Christianity. And that is exactly what has happened with Christmas and other holidays as well. Everyone understand this? So therefore, obviously, there were many people who invaded Britain or Great Britain, England, before it was a formal country. And there were many people who migrated from the European countries to the New World, to the United States. And whenever you have people mixing, on any level of mixing, marriage, buying, selling, fighting, invading, conquering, there's always going to be a mixture of culture. And there's going to be trading of ideas and values. And if your faith, if your aqidah, whatever it is, if it is not strong and protected, and if your worldly situation as well is not compromised, there lies no doubt you're going to go through change. You're going to go through change. So someone can have strong faith, but they may have extreme poverty. Or they're extremely weak. And not of someone who's extremely strong. That's going to have an effect on their practice and on their aqidah. And they're going to compromise, if not totally forsake their deen. Everyone understand this? One or two things now. The first is the strength of one's conviction. And every non-Muslim isn't necessarily convicted with their faith. There are many people, if not most of them, will say we just do it because our fathers did it. It doesn't make any sense. There's no textual proof for it, but it's the custom. It's what my people did before me, so I'm going to do it. And when the truth is brought to them, or even if it isn't the truth, but another faith, another religion that is stronger than theirs, there's a big possibility that they will accept it. And they will relinquish that which their forefathers were upon. Muslim, Jew, Christian, Kafir. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is those who do have a very strong conviction in their faith, whatever their faith may be, truth or falsehood, but their worldly life is totally compromised, that they're linked upon until which they start compromising and giving up their faith. Everyone understand this? I wish I believe this, but there's no way I can do this in public. There's no way I can avoid eating this. There's no way I can denounce this and reject that, because it's too difficult from a worldly stance. And that is from the origins of Christmas. From the origins of Christmas. From the origins of what? From the origins of Christmas. Right, moving forward. Before we get to this origin and where it comes from in its history in detail, the point that I want to bring up is this goes to show us the tremendous danger of compromising with the people of Kufr and Shirk and befriending them and obeying them and listening to them. It shows us the tremendous danger of imitating them and the tremendous danger of looking at them with glossy eyes, shiny eyes, and being amazed at what they're upon. And when the Muslims started doing things like this, looking towards non-Muslims for guidance, and they're better, and they're more advanced, and they're above and beyond us, the Muslim aqidah, the Muslim practice, and the Muslim identity, it started to what? Crumble and fall apart. Until the situation that we're in today. The situation that we're in today. And the Quran and the Sunnah are full of ayat that warn us against this danger of obeying those who have been given the scripture, of looking towards the hayat al-dunya, of being amazed by what they have of wealth and of children. Quran and the Sunnah clearly warns us from these things. And the only reason why Allah Azza wa Jalla warns us therefrom is because it will happen and it can happen. And once you begin to compromise our Islam and our identity and our practice and the purity of our belief and our culture of Islam starts to fade and diminish. Starts to what? Fade and diminish. Moving forward. Khairan inshallah ta'ala. So the following points I'd like to discuss. First and foremost is holidays. If Christmas wasn't a pagan holiday or a Christian holiday, whatever it is it permissible for us to celebrate it? Number two is the direct connection between Christmas and the creed of the Trinity. The Trinity, the belief that Allah, Isa, the Holy Ghost, the Father, the Son, the Spirit are all divinely intertwined. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came down in the form of a man to be humiliated, to be hung or hanged and crucified and tortured for the forgiveness and the redemption of the sinful humans. This is something that you cannot remove from Christmas. And if you accept that, then you're going to be forced to accept that. Number three, in brief, when we talk about history and inaccurate dates, was Jesus Christ, the Son of Mary, born on the 25th of December? Was it even in the winter time in which he was born? Was he born in a stable or a barn and those wise men brought him gold and frankincense and myrrh in the middle of the winter? Everyone understand this? So if he wasn't born on the 25th of December, then whose birthday are they actually celebrating? And what deity was born or died on that day? And this is crucially important to understand the direct connection between shirk and between Christmas. And that is far deeper than a Christian holiday. Even if they don't know it, or they know it, but they refuse to accept it. Number four, with regards to paganism and how people celebrate their false gods and their deities besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how they physically manifest it with regards to what you eat during Christmas, or what you hang in your window, or on your car, or what you stand under, or what you say to someone, or what colors you wear during the Christmas season, and how symbolic all of those things were to the worship of those gods and goddesses, those idols, those alihah, those false deities. Moving forward, number five is the concept of wastefulness, spendthriftness, and consumerism. And that has nothing to do with the concept of shirk, nothing to do with the concept of the Trinity in Christianity, and nothing to do with the concept of one's aqidah. But it's definitely a part of our deen. Is what is the ruling on being a spendthrift? What is the ruling on wasting money? Point number six is the concept of al-bara wal-wala, is love and hate. Love and hate. Do we really love the non-Muslims, or do we hate them? Do we really, can we honestly say that we hate them and we don't want to be like them, and we only love for them for Islam? or we accept their ways, and they accept lakum dinukum waliya din. You have your religion, I have mine. Was that the final revelation sent down from the Quran? La ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in the religion. Was that the last ayat sent down in the Quran? To you is your way, and to me is mine. Was that the last thing that Allah wanted us to be upon with regards to non-Muslims, of the mushrikeen, the Jews and the Christians, or was it something else? So al-bara wal-wala, as we all know, is the core of the religion. And ironic hypocrisy is that we say we read from the books of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, and we take from his books, and we learn from his books, and he was the mujaddid, and he was the muslih, and he was a reformist, etc. But the main core of his dawah was nothing more than bara and wala. There's no book that you can read of Ibn Abdul Wahhab except that he talks about it. From Usul al-Thalatha to his largest books. The concept of being free, al-bara'a min ash-shirki wa ahlihi. Removing yourself from shirk and his people, and being free from shirk and his people in every sense, form, and fashion. And that is something which you cannot uphold, celebrating, allowing, tolerating, or recognizing Christmas. They just don't go together. It's like water and oil. There cannot be wala and bara, and you celebrate or allow someone to say Merry Christmas, or it's okay, and there's nothing wrong with it. Moving forward. After that, we have the concept of showing off and seeking fame and reputation and lack of sincerity. How does this pertain to Christmas? Who buys the biggest gift? Who spends the most money? Who has the fanciest clothes? Who spends the most money on their children, even though the children are undeserving of those gifts? That is something which you're going to infringe and violate if you celebrate Christmas and accept things with regards to Christmas. After that is cheating one's children. Cheating one's children. Forsaking one's children. And one of the ugliest things with Christmas is that you give your children gifts even though they don't deserve those gifts. They weren't obedient. They weren't nice. They weren't respectful. And they know they weren't. And you say, I'm not going to buy nothing for Christmas. I'm not going to give you anything for Christmas. But the child knows that you're lying. And the child knows that you're weak. And the child knows that I'm going to get this and that for Christmas, even though I know it was bad disrespect. I'm not making this up. The children, they know this. That you don't have the ability to tell them no, nor are you going to ruin your entire Christmas just to discipline this one child that was utterly disrespectful. And this is not the Islamic way of raising children. There's not the Islamic way of disciplining children to spoil a child, in which they can do bad, they can do evil, and still get their way. And if that's how you raise your child, know for sure that you have cheated your children. Because when they grow up, the same behavior will continue. I don't have to do it the right way. I don't have to follow the rules. I don't have to show respect. I don't have to obey, and I'm going to get my way. And if I can't get my way, my weak father, my weak mother will be there to bail me out every single time. It's not something that's pertaining to young children who have a temper tantrum. Children in college, people when they become grown, marriage, divorce, domestic abuse, all of these things are based off of how a person is raised and how a person or what a person gets in life, even though they don't do it the right way. And this is from the greatest harms with regards to the secular effects of Christmas. Moving forward. So we have the history of Christmas. We have some of the customs of Christmas. Moving forward, before we go that far, something that we mentioned in the lecture regarding the Western holidays. We mentioned the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar, the famous hadith, in which the Prophet ﷺ is quoted to have said, the hadith is in Musnad Imam Ahmad. He says, بُعِثْتُ بِالسَّيْفِ بَيْنِ يَدَ السَّاعَةِ حَتَّى يُعْبُدُ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent me before the coming of the last day. I have been sent before the hour, bis-sayf, with the sword, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be worshipped and no one else to be worshipped. وَجُعِلَ رِزْقِي فِي ظِلِّ أَوْ تَحْتَ ظِلِّ رُمْحِ. He says, and my provision and my sustenance, my food and my drink, my money has been placed beneath the shade of my spear, meaning that I'm a warrior. And my entire message is based off of being a warrior. And I'm supposed to live, and I'm supposed to earn my keep from being a warrior. This is a tremendous hadith now, brothers and sisters. The Prophet is telling us and warning us from being soft and being complacent and not living with the mentality of the warrior. He says, my sustenance has been placed beneath the shade of my spear, meaning that is where I get my wealth from. That is how I make my wealth and my living, through being a warrior. The Prophet then says, وَجُعِلَتِ الظِّلَّةُ وَالصَّغَارُ عَلَى مَنْ خَالَفَ أَمْرِي. He says, in humiliation and disgrace will be cast upon those who disobey my commands. Humiliation and disgrace will be cast upon those who disobey my commands. وَمَنْ تَشَبَّهَ بِقَوْمٍ فَهُوَ مِنْهُمْ. The last part of the hadith, which is commonly quoted, and I gave you the entire version of the hadith to show you the whole concept. He says, and whoever obeys, or whoever imitates the people, then he's from them. Whoever imitates the people, then he's from them. Then it's permissible to just quote one section of a hadith. It's permissible to quote one sentence from a hadith. It's permissible. But you cannot get the full understanding and depth of the hadith if you do not read it from beginning to end. So the Prophet ﷺ, he basically says the following words. Allah has sent me as the final messenger. And there's no one that's going to come after me before the last day. Before the hour. I'm the last one. If you do not embark upon this ship, then there's no other ship that will deliver you from safety. You will drown. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he sent me with something. And that thing, everything about it represents and symbolizes seriousness. And that's the sword. There's nothing about sword that's friendly or fun. It's an object and it's an instrument with a specific purpose. So the seriousness of the sword, the Prophet says, that's what Allah has sent me with. And despite him sending me with the sword, he says that my sustenance, my rizq, has been placed beneath the shade of my sword, of my spear, another instrument. And those who disobey me, those who go against me, they will be disgraced and humiliated. Last but not least, and whoever imitates the people, whoever copycats the people, whoever mimics another people from which he is not from, for who minhum, then he'll be from among them. And obviously most people, they understand the negative connotation of this hadith, imitating the kuffar. But there's a positive connotation of this hadith, which is imitating the righteous. Being like the righteous, being like the knowledgeable people, trying your best to strive, then bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, hopefully you'll be among them. You understand this? Imitate successful people. تشبهوا بالكرام وإن لم تكونوا مثلهم. إن التشبه بالكرام فلاح. As the poet said, he says, imitate the successful, imitate noble people. Because even if you're not from them, you'll be someone who will get some type of success. Some type of success. So subhanAllah, to strive to be righteous, to strive to be pious, to strive to be knowledgeable. Even if you feel that you're not that knowledgeable, you're not that pious, but you have to try. You have to strive. And obviously the main interpretation of the hadith, the negative connotation, is that those who imitate non-Muslims, those who imitate sinful Muslims, then they will be from them. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he said regarding this hadith, وَهَذَا الْحَدِيثُ أَقَلُّ أَحْوَالِهِ أَنْ يَقْتَضِيَ تَحْرِيمَ التَّشَبُّهِ بِهِمْ وإن كان ظاهر يقتضي كفر المتشبه بهم كما في قوله ومن يتولهم منكم فإنه منهم. He says this hadith here has only two levels. There's no middle level with this hadith. It's either at best or at worst. He says at worst, this hadith proves that those who imitate the mushrikeen and the kuffar are not Muslims. They're upon kufr. That's at worst. And at best, he says, and it clearly proves that it is haram to do so. It's haram to do so. Or understand the difference? He says, at best, the zahir of the hadith, that which is outward from the hadith, is that those who imitate these people are not upon Islam. It's kufr. And I said at best, is that it's definitely haram to imitate them. And the Prophet, he did not specify in his hadith to imitate them in their clothes, or their drink, or their sayings, or their cliches, or their holidays. He says, وَمَنْ تَشَبَّهَ بِقَوْمٍ. Any people, whether they have an Abrahamic faith, whether they're monotheism, whether they're pagans, idolaters, heathens, he says, be qawmin, a people. So if you imitate the people, then you're from them. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he then says, regarding this hadith and its danger, he says here, فَقَدْ يُحْمَلُ هَذَا عَلَى التَّشَبُّهِ الْمُطْلَقِ فَإِنَّهُ يُوجِبُ الْكُفْرِ ويقتضي تحريم أبعاد ذلك وقد يحمل على أنه منهم في القدر المشترك الذي شابههم فيه فإن كان كفرا أو معصية أو شعارا كان لا حكمه كذلك وبكل حال يقتضي تحريم التشبه. انتهى كلامه باختصاره. He says in this hadith can mean one or two things. Is that those who are imitating the kuffar and the mushrikeen, absolutely. Or those who imitate the kuffar and the mushrikeen as something which is partial. To absolutely imitate them and to take their whole entire way. Or you have your way, your identity, your faith, your aqidah, but you imitate them in something partial. So if you imitated them in a partial thing, and that's kufr, then that specific act from among you is kufr. If you imitated them in a partial or individual thing. Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, continuing regarding this, he says, فَالْمُشَابَهَةُ وَالْمُشَارَكَةُ أو المشاكلة في الأمور الظاهرة توجب مشابهة ومشاكلة في الأمور الباطنة على وجه المسارقة والتدريج الخفي. He says imitating someone outwardly leads to you imitating them inwardly. Being like a person outwardly leads to you being like a person inwardly. It leads to it. So even if a person says it's just clothes, or it's just a holiday, or it's just saying Merry Christmas, or it's just, that is deeper than that. And eventually he says, musaraqa, it will be thievery. Someone's identity will be stolen. Someone's character will be stolen. Someone's character will be adopted. He says, وَالتَّدْرِيجِ الْخَفِي. He says, hidden progression. Slowly. It starts off with a handshake, and then this, and then I'll celebrate, and I'll come, and I'll just show my face, and I'll pay my respects, and I won't say anything about it. And the next thing you know, in 5-10 years, you've accepted it. You understand this? But it isn't something which is apparent. He says, التدريج الخفي. It's subtle, and it's what? Progressive. It's subtle and what? Progressive. And in most times when you find out about the cancer, it's what? Oftentimes what? Too late. Because you've ignored it. And it's slowly and progressively grown. And now it's too aggressive. And it can't just be conveniently removed. Everyone understand this? So Ibn Taymiyyah, he says here, being like people outwardly is nothing more than a road and a path to being like someone what? Inwardly. Shaykh Islam, he then says, وَقَدْ رَأَيْنَا الْيَهُودَ وَالنَّصَارَى الَّذِينَ عَاشَرُوا الْمُسْلِمِينَ هُمْ أَقَلُّ كُفْرًا مِنْ غَيْرِهِمْ. Ibn Taymiyyah says, and indeed we have seen Jews and Christians who lived in Muslim lands, who had Muslim neighbors, and we saw that their kufr was far less than those who didn't live with Muslims. The Christians who lived in the Muslim lands under their protection, or they were neighbors, or the Christians were in charge and the Muslims lived under their protection, they lived with the Muslims. He says their kufr was what? Aqal. It was less. They weren't as nasty and vicious. Because of what? Being with the Muslims. In the marketplace with the Muslims. Everyone understand this? Living and interacting with Muslims. Look at this city right here, Philadelphia. If you go down south, or you go to the Midwest, or you go far northeast, you go to Walmart or the supermarket, somebody may laugh at you wearing a thobe. Or they may stare at you wearing a thobe. Or they may look at you really funny with a big long beard. Or may say something about your wife. Why is she dressed like that? Does she have a bomb? Is she a ninja? Why she has a mask on her face? But the chances of that happening in Philadelphia are what? Slim to none. Why? Because the non-Muslims have what? They've lived. Not accepted, but they've what? It's normal. They're desensitized. For me to come out my house and see a sister walking in all black, no doubt, that's abnormal in America. All black. Walk down the street, get in the car, drive. It's shocking. But then, that's my neighbor. So I see her every single day. She takes her kids to school, she comes home, and she's wearing the same thing. It's not the same as someone living in Illinois or Atlanta, Georgia, in which they see somebody like, whoa, what is this? Everyone understand this? And their mockery, and their acceptance, and their hatred of it is not going to be the same as someone who has to live with their neighbor. Everyone understand this? Or their boss, or their employee, or their employer, or their boyfriend, or their girlfriend, unfortunately. This is the reality. Someone who lives with a Muslim. How many people accept Islam because of a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Many of you brothers, I'm sure, sitting here, accepted Islam through a boyfriend or girlfriend, or a sister. My boyfriend was a Muslim, and he gave me dawah. And I took my shot. I'm not making this up, nigga. It's not the truth. It's the reality. And it's not the same in a place in which there are few Muslims, or less Muslims, or Islam is not that strong. Everyone understand this? So Ibn Taymiyyah says, we've seen Jews and Christians in Syria, in Egypt, and other places who've lived with the Muslims. He says their kufr is less. Kama, he says here, كما رأينا المسلمين الذين أكثروا من معاشرة اليهود والنصارى هم أقل إيمانا من غيرهم. He says, just as we've seen Muslims who have lived with the Jews and the Christians and befriended them and taken their side and partnered with them and lived with them for a great time, he says their iman is less than other Muslims. The strength of their Islam is what? He says it's not the same. And that can be applied to this city or other cities as well. What type of job you have, what type of background you come from, what type of money you make, where you live, your neighborhood is a huge difference. Why Islam in the inner urban city is a way, and why in the suburbs is in a what? A different way. Everyone understand this? It would be unheard of for there to be a masjid in the middle of the inner urban city doing anything pertaining to interfaith. No matter what the aqidah of the masjid is, they're not doing what? interfaith. And if they are, it's very rare. But you go to suburban communities, different affluent communities, regardless of their ethnicity, interfaith is what? It's a higher percentage. Because those non-Muslims out there, and who they allow into their neighborhoods, and to their comfortable, luxurious life, is nothing like the inner urban city. So that's what Ibn Taymiyyah is saying right now, is that if you do it outwardly, it can have a huge effect upon that which is what? Inward. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, he then says, لأن المشابهة في الظاهر تدعو إلى الموافقة في الهدي الباطن كما دل عليه الشرع والعقل والحس. Ibn Qayyim, the prized student of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he says, and that is because agreeing with someone outwardly, it clearly calls to agreeing with someone inwardly. And this is proven by the Quran and Sunnah. This is proven by common sense. It says aql. And it's proven by his tangible things around you. No one can deny this. The character is a thief. And people rub off on people. People rub off on people. And the fact that you're wearing my jersey, or you're wearing the chain that you saw me wear in the video, or you're dressing how I dress, or walking how you see me walk and talk, that proves and that shows that you admire me. And there's some type of love and affection that you have for me, whether you acknowledge it or not. Everyone understand this? Whether it's subtle or whether it's plain in public. Ibn Qayyim even says, وَلِهَذَا جَاءَتِ الشَّرِيعَةُ بِالْمَنْعِ مِنَ التَّشَبُّهِ بِالْكُفَّارِ وَالْحَيَوَانَاتِ وَالشَّيَاطِينِ إِلَى آخِرِ كَلَامِهِ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهِ. He says, and for this reason, the Sharia prevents people from imitating the kuffar. And it prevents people from imitating us. And it prevents people from imitating the shaitan, not eating with your left hand, eating with your left hand, wearing this, sitting like this. And it's preventing men from imitating women, and obviously women from imitating men. And it is preventing people who live in civilized towns from imitating Bedouins, imitating a nomad, someone who's uncouth and crude. It's not supposed to be someone who lives in a what? A civilized town. And that's the end of Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala's speech. So there's a few statements of some of the greatest of the ulama of the past with regards to the general atmosphere and the general approach of any holiday that's not found in the Quran and the Sunnah. Whatever that holiday is, and wherever it is celebrated, in the Middle East, in North Africa, South Africa, in the United States, wherever that holiday may be. And it's sufficient proof to remove Christmas from the Muslim's plate is the fact that it's not in our deen. And if it's not in our deen, then it's one of two things. It's either something which is harmful, or it's something which is beneficial, but its benefit doesn't reach our standard. It doesn't reach our standard. It's okay. It's all right for argument's sake, but it's nothing like the standard of Islam. And that's because the standard of Islam is extremely high. Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum. Allah says, on this day, I have perfected for you your religion. Wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati, completed my favor upon you. Allah didn't say, I've given you a favor, I've blessed you, I've given you Islam. No, I've sent down the religion. Allah never mentioned this. He says perfection and completion. So therefore, if you're used to eating gourmet, top-notch food, every single meal and snack and dessert, breakfast, lunch, dinner, can you go and eat from a hot dog cart? Seriously. Can you walk to a hot dog cart and enjoy the meal? And you get the best of the best, the food, the quality, and the preparation of the food for every single thing that you eat and drink. Can you just go and says, yeah, give me go in 7-Eleven, even worse than a hot dog cart, and get the hot dogs spinning on those metal bars all day. Or the pizza that's been sitting under the what? The lights all day. It's a reality. Can you come down to that level? You can't. Your taste buds won't even accept it. No matter how hungry you are. So the same applies to Islam. If it's not in the Quran and the Sunnah, then what use could it possibly what? Be. And if it is of use, it isn't what? It isn't of our standards. Everyone understand this is extremely, and everyone can relate to this. The shoes on your feet, the socks on your feet, you can't wear cheap, cheesy socks. Because it's not of your what? It's not of your standard. Do the socks not keep your feet warm? They do. They do. They look okay, but it's not your what? It's not your taste that you've been accustomed to wearing. So that is with regards to any holiday, pagan, Christian, Jew, Christian, whatever it may be, that's not found in the Quran and not found in the Sunnah. Like, as far as the holiday of Christmas, then, as we said before, mixing. Like Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim mentioned, mixing. This is how Christmas came about. Through Christians mixing with pagans. Or through pagans accepting Christianity and not totally eradicating their pagan ways. So when we talk about the date, number one, the 25th of Christmas today, was that when Jesus was born? Does it say that in the scripture? The Old Testament, the New Testament, the disciples state that. Logically, was it even of sense for him to be born in the middle of the winter? Is that documented historically? And who was the first person to mandate that that was the birthday of Jesus Christ? If you talk to Christian scholars who are actual scholars and they're objective, they would tell you that the 25th of December is not scientifically proven the birth of Jesus Christ. So the question is, where did it come from? How did it come from? There's an ancient idol, an ancient goddess whose name was Mithra. And she was originally from Iran. She was a pagan goddess that was worshipped, adored, and there was a secret Roman cult that upheld her status. And it's proven and documented that she was born on the 25th of December. So in actuality, the 25th of December is the celebration of the birth of a pagan goddess who had nothing to do with Christians or Christianity. So how did it seep into Christianity? Through Roman invasion into England. And when they invaded the place, they didn't just bring swords and spears and shields, but they brought what? Aqidah. And Aqidah never ever went away. But it doesn't stop there. We have Yuletide, or mistletoe, or Christmas tree, or lighting lights. Where did these things come from? It comes from the worship of Norse gods. In other words, Vikings, who were travelers, who were warriors, and were conquerors. And many historians say they were the people to discover America first, before Columbus. Leif Erikson, as we said. The son of what? Of Eric. Like your Bluetooth signal. You ever wonder what a Bluetooth is? Look at your phone. Look at it right now. Put on your Bluetooth. Right now. What does that sign mean? Battery? Nah, it's not a battery. A banner. It's not a banner. What is it? What did you ever ask yourself, what does that symbolize? You have the Wi-Fi signal on, it's clearly something tangible. The light, the sound, the lock screen, auto rotate. What the heck is a Bluetooth signal? Look how odd and peculiar it is. Look at it. It doesn't even look right. Look at it right now. Seriously, I'm dead serious. You ever think about that? How weird it is? Extremely funny. And that's because it's not a mistake. It's a rune. It's a pagan symbol of King Harold. And his offspring were the sons of Ericsson, Sony Ericsson. And they made Bluetooth. And he had a rotting tooth that was dark or blue. So the concept of the Viking influence on the United States and of America is profound. It's profound. So we're talking about the Norsemen, the Danish Vikings, Scandinavians, who went from the north to Britain, England, France, let alone to America. Obviously, they brought with them a lot of their culture. Moving forward, a famous section of Philadelphia is called what? Germantown. The Germans actually lived there. Why did we get the name? Out of him, it's called Germantown. Many things you eat, from hot dogs, hamburgers, ketchup, mustard, relish, pickles, pastrami sandwiches, all come from what culture? Germans. And what was the origin and the history of German or Germanic people? Was it Christianity? No, it was not. They were pagans and they were idol worshippers. They were what? They were idol worshippers. Ireland, before St. Patrick and people like this that brought and revolutionized their Christianity, they worshipped what? They worshipped idols. So this is all the foundation of Christmas. And during the winter, specifically from the 21st to the 6th of January, was a place or time called the summer solstice, the winter solstice. It was a time in which the nights were the longest and the days were the shortest. And it was a time in which they celebrated pagan gods and goddesses. And the Yuletide, a huge log, while the other as a phallic idol, is symbolizing a sexual organ for fertility. So they would light the idol and they would keep the idol lit for 12 days. And those 12 days, there were human sacrifices, animal sacrifices, all thrown and burnt alive for the honor of their god and of their goddesses, of their shirk. And the same applies to the Christmas tree, the fir tree. But before we go that deep, the concept of the fir tree, if you bash Christmas, then you're obviously going to have to talk about many, many other things that we do on a daily basis, such as having plants in your house. There is no origin of keeping plants in your house except for that of the mushrikeen. And there's no tree or plant or flower that you buy except that it is based off of superstition. Superstition. That's why you go to certain people who sell these things, and they won't sell certain plants to you. It's not even available because it's based off of good and bad luck. And the fir tree was something that they adored, something that they worshipped, and they looked to it for fertility. They worshipped trees. They were people of shirk and kufr. And they believed that they were spirits that were sent down into these trees. And that is why they took them and put them in their homes and lit them and decorated them. Everyone understand this? And there are many, many, many other pagan things that have direct connection to Christmas. Its date, as I just explained to you. Some of the things that they do, giving of gifts. Everyone understand this? Putting up a Christmas tree. And most importantly, the lights. Because it was darkness. It was a winter solstice. It was very, very long nights. And long nights mean darkness, and darkness means cold. And the only thing that would keep them warm and allow them to eat and to feed was fire. So they worship these things. How do these things creep into Christmas? Where did they come from? As I just explained. The people who were originally pagans, they never ever left it off. And those who came to Christianity, the Christians, they had to compromise to them. If you read the history of Christmas, I'm not going to give you everything, I can't give you everything. You'll find that it was basically a big, huge, gigantic worship of gods and goddesses. And not only did they make shirk and kufr and human sacrifice, but they also did a great deal of debauchery. They had orgies. They committed rape. They committed murder. And there'll be days on end of drinking and reveling. So much so that Christmas was banned. Christmas, the Mass of Christ, Saturnalia, was banned in many, many European countries. Until they saw that the people couldn't do without it. They had to have fun. They had to drink. They had to fornicate. They had to have this type of wasting of time. So the Christians, they, instead of rejecting the holiday, they adopted it. And they tried to make it into a Christian holiday. And magically and mysteriously said, this is when Jesus was born. And the 12 days of Christmas. And because gold and frankincense and myrrh were given, now you give gifts. And show your hospitality and so on and so forth. But the thing that they either forgot or they allowed was the clear pagan rituals. The clear pagan rituals. And that's where the tree comes from. And that's where the mistletoe comes from. Where does Santa Claus come from? A very, very scary history of Santa Claus. Santa Claus is a secular figure. Santa Claus at one point in time was a saint, St. Nicholas. And St. Nicholas was even deeper than that. Where does the reindeer come from? Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. His origin is Shaitan. Literally. And this is a historical fact. They commercialized it and they shaved it down to make it friendly and agreeable. But if you look at old books and sources, it shows you with this man, St. Nicholas, or Krampus with Rupert, a devil and a demon that he took as his servant. And the good kids were given toys and prizes, and the bad kids were given whips and what's the word I'm looking for? A switch. And that's why people hang socks up over the fireplace. And the whole entire Aqidah is all based off of paganism and idolatry, with the mixture and attaining of what? Christian Aqidah. Then the final blow is that of the consumerism and wasting. And there's some Christian scholars who say, and this is the last thing I'm going to say tonight in brief, there's some Christian scholars who say that even though they try to make Christmas to a secular holiday and has nothing to do with religion and nothing to do with faith, etc., they say that the entire concept of Christmas, it involves lying to your children and feeding your children lies. And they say that not only is this wrong in Christian scriptures, but it's also going to backfire against Christians and their propaganda. And that's because when a child grows up and he realizes that Santa Claus was a lie and Christmas was a lie and it was just a big joke, they will lose trust and they'll lose faith in what we told them and taught them when they were younger. So if they have the ability to doubt Christmas and the ability to doubt Santa Claus, then what about what they told us about Jesus Christ? Is that really true? Is there such thing as one of three? Did he die for our sins? Does the cross really represent what it represents? These are Christians now. We're not even getting to what we as Muslims say. And our Aqidah with regards to lying and lying to your children. And the effects of lying and raising your children upon what? Lies, even if it's a friendly joke or a white lie. But the bottom line is that you're telling your children that I told you something that wasn't right. So when they grow up, what is there going to be? What is their position towards the other things that you what? Told them. Is the door not open for doubt? Let alone the fact that Christmas, no matter how much we try to make it to a secular holiday, it will always be a pagan holiday. And that is because the mystical belief of Santa Claus. Just look and break down everything about Santa Claus now. Where did he come from? Who is he? Let's not get into that right now. Look what he can do. He knows what you did. He knows those who are naughty and those who are nice. He has the ability to travel in every place, every land, every single country in one night and give reward or prevent reward. Number 3, Santa Claus, the children who want gifts and want to be treated and rewarded, are they thinking about Jesus Christ? Are they thinking about their deity? Or are they thinking about being rewarded and blessed by this figure, Santa Claus? So their hearts are based off of the love, the veneration, looking forward to, hoping and fearing Jesus Christ or who? Santa Claus. So every single thing about Santa Claus is based off of shirk. And he given him superpowers and unnatural abilities of a human being. Like he is a what? A God, a deity. You ever think about that now? Just stop and think about that. He has the ability to be in every place, every time. We Muslims, what is our belief about the unlimited power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah sees what? Everything. And hears what? Everything. The hadith of the Prophet tells us that towards the last part of the night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he descends. And he calls out to his servants, who calls on me, who begs of my forgiveness, who asks of my mercy that I may give them. So there's some people whom Allah has caused their hearts to be blind. They say, well, how can this hadith be true? And how can this hadith be literal when there are different time zones? So if it's the third of the night in Indonesia, it can't be the last third of the night in New York City. So how can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do this and the time zones clearly differ? Someone can say this. And our response as Muslims is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not restricted to that which the what? Human beings are restricted. For a human being to be in one place and every single time is logically what? Impossible. I'm not saying Allah is in a place. I'm trying to make a concept. For a human being to be there, to do this, and different time zones all at once is beyond the natural powers of any type of creation. So if you believe that someone has the ability to do that, and to be there, or to say this, or to give this, that proves that you believe about that person what? Shirk. Fil rububiyyah, exactly. That's shirk in lordship. Is that he has things that are supernatural. Or maybe God gave them to Santa Claus. Jesus Christ gave him those powers. But then you just said that Christmas wasn't a what? A religious holiday. It's all secular now. So the point is that the holiday can never be removed from Christianity, nor can it be removed from what? From paganism. It has to be intertwined, no matter how you deal with it. And if you do escape that, then you cannot escape the other points that I've mentioned of consumerism, in which most businesses make 60% of their yearly earnings in one season. Just like Mecca and Medina. We know many brothers who own hotels. They don't work except for Hajj time. It's the only time they work. And their hotels are shut down and closed except for Hajj time. In other words, that's all the money I need for what? 12 months from Hajj. You understand this? I don't have to work except for what? Hajj time. That's all the money I need to suffice me for the entire year. And that's Christmas. 60% out of 12 months you can make in a month or a couple of weeks. It's a lot of money. Is that money being spent justly, equally? Is that moderation? Of course not. There's spendthrifts. You go out and you buy the most expensive things that your undeserving children demand and expect. So the point is, the bottom line, brothers and sisters, with a little bit of time that we have here, is that Christmas generally and specifically has nothing to do with Islam. Generally or what? Specifically. Based off of what I just mentioned in brief. Generally or what? Specifically. The religious aspect, the worldly aspect, the historical aspect. Rather, Christmas has nothing to do with Christianity from a historical aspect. And if it's far from Christianity, then obviously it's going to be far from Islam. Everyone understand this? It has nothing to do with it. So a Muslim celebrating Christmas, allowing his children to partake in these festivities, saying Merry Christmas, etc., is going to be extremely problematic. Let alone if you put antlers on your car with the red nose in the front. May Allah help us all, and bless us all, and forgive us all. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to understand these realities. Brothers, please just don't take this from me. Go read. It's not just facts that I'm just making up. Go read it yourself. Read the nice subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll find all this information and much more of the dark, hidden, and untold history of these pagan holidays and how we are victimized thereby. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Only a few questions. How much time we have at Sajid?
How much time would you want? Where the other lecture at? On the 4th.
1 second, inshallah.
Brother Muhammad. Hold on, we're gonna stop. Turn it.
Yes, abshir. I'll take the Ramadan and Kitab.
نعم عديته
كيف الكتاب؟ كيف الكتاب؟
الحمد لله كتاب ممتاز الحمد لله يعني تركته مع زوجتي وهي تقرأ
He's just changing the tape.
Take my hat. That burgundy, you can't find that color. It's not what I'm saying. Wait from that here. You can't find that burgundy.
Hey, he's not done yet.
Most of that, without being like detailed,
Saeed.
They're from Naeem.
I've seen him. I've seen him a couple times.
Where you look? Where you at?
I've seen him though. He's live.
New York.
She's all over the world watching.
I know.
In a second. I saw him though. He's much better.
What's better?
Yeah. He's much better. I ain't get a chance to like rip him up like that, but
Tell him call Rafiq if you ever see him.
Masood, I got you. I'm sorry.
I knew you follow.
Subhanallah. Allah bless you, Sheikh. Allah bless you. What's your name, Sheikh? What's your name, Sheikh? Saud.
Yeah.
Marhaba. No problem. Allah bless you. Allah bless you. Sit down when you drink. Sit down when you drink, son. Sit down when you drink.
So I can't have a Christmas tree?
Yeah, you took me to.
I ain't had a Christmas tree. Never had a
Right now.
Okay, so
I joined the Nation when I was
You lied, Sheikh. You lied. Yeah. They'll benefit from that, though. Yeah. It's deep. Yeah, deep. You gotta leave? Say no more. As soon as we done.
Can we done?
Inshallah.
Doing that side.
Okay.
Until they come around the back.
As soon as we done.
Alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum.
كيف أخي؟
Alhamdulillah.
What's new with the documentary?
Would you say that again?
What's new with the documentary?
Nothing yet. I gotta get in contact with him. But he's a non-Muslim. He's
Let me
non-Muslim.
know. I need a green one. I like that dark green.
I got it from 52nd Chestnut.
Grab me one.
Mountain.
That's on my phone.
I grab one. I want to ask you
No, don't touch that. Do not touch that. That's not yours. Do
what you was talking
not
about.
touch that.
What you was talking about.
It's not a toy.
You was talking about my brother's on it, but he's not Muslim, but he was on the verge of taking his shahada, man. He on that verge.
You gotta just talk to him. And just be patient. Make the offer. When he's ready, he's gonna do it, inshallah.
He's totally against Christianity. He's off that. So.
Keep being kind to him. Keep being kind to him and don't push him. He can do it, inshallah.
I am sitting down on the chair in the air. Okay,
Shake your heart. Robert.
I'll go on stage.
I don't know.
I'm 70. How old would he be today?
He'd be about your age.
I was a good friend of yours.
Yeah.
Did he go to temple?
Yes. That's it.
Assalamu brothers. We need y'all to sit down so we can do the question and answer, inshallah.
Stop the law, man. Over chips, man. back, man.
We got to get back.
How you been?
How
I've
you
been oh, not too bad, not too bad. Good to see you. Shake. Hit me up, shake. No problem. Jump on fight. Maybe next week. So, Nafis, how's it going? Good to see you, Aki. How's Cardiff? It's good. Send him out some land. Where's Jaffa?
He's over there.
He's a different man now. MashaAllah, yeah. Yeah, MashaAllah. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. أهلا بك. هاي أخي. ماذا وجدت في قضيتك؟ أبو سعد. Whenever you're ready. You ready? We live. بعد الكلمة إن شاء الله. أبشر. طيب. Bismillah. I'll try to take a few questions if we have enough time. Summarize answers, inshallah. تفضل. لا. كيف You always have me. شافوا كلهم يا أخي. تفضل. لا المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل. لا أبو ساجد. تفضل. You always have me يا ماهدي. You always have me. Clear. Questions regarding plants. And what you mentioned in the lecture about plants and them being from the way of the people of Shuk. A lot of people have mentioned many times. The bitter reality is that there are many things that we do on a daily basis, or just things that we do from time to time that originate from Shuk and the people of Shuk. And from that is the concept of hanging plants and trees in one's home. Now, does that mean that it's haram to do it now? Especially the Muslim who says, I'm doing it because it's decorative, it gives fresh air, etc. The ambiance of the natural creation of Allah. I didn't say that it's haram now. But for you to at least know the origin. And also for those who are hasty and impulsive and say that everything's haram, and you can't do this, and you have to say this, and this is a bid'ah, and you have to cross this out, and this. That's the only reason, the second reason why I mention that, just like the Bluetooth signal. So there are people who say, well, you can't have this. Let's take a Swiss Army knife. Me personally, if I had a Swiss Army knife, I would remove the crucifix. I wouldn't carry a Wagner book bag or suitcase. But there are brothers who do have them. They make quality stuff. Like Red Cross, it's a symbol for something. But that symbol doesn't necessarily represent Christianity by itself. I wouldn't wear it. I wouldn't be comfortable wearing it. But can I now say that you have to get rid of it and cross out every single thing, and I myself cut on my phone and cut on Bluetooth? And I have the Bluetooth signal, which is two runes put together, signifying his name. And those people in that location were nothing more than mushriks. And their aqidah was based off of those runes. And those different spells and incantations, or those different supplications that they made to their gods. Odin and Freya and Thor, waliyadu billah. And all those different aliha, those false gods besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the point is that know the history, and the history allows you to have more firmness in your aqidah, and allows you to slow down and pump the brakes on talking about things that you really don't know the history of. And many people, they are hypocritical. They say you can't do this, but they have that. Are you understanding this? Now, in brief, somebody asked a question a couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, about joining the army, joining the U.S. Army. And I basically said in 100 words, I don't advise this. I don't think you should do it. But I'm not going to say right here, right now, that it's haram. For several reasons. It may be haram, but I'm not going to say it for several reasons. And one of those reasons is double standard and hypocrisy. And people become extremely emotional. Oh, how could you say this? Astaghfirullah, you're killing the Muslims, the army of the Taghut, so on and 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 so forth. But your tax dollars go where? The gas, the fuel for the bomb, for the rocket is funded through who? Or if you get deeper than that, the countries overseas in the Middle East, which allow the non-Muslims to park their warships and to refuel their planes. You won't say anything about them. You won't say anything about them. So hypocrisy and double standard, that's the issue. And we know the history of a thing and the breakdown of a thing, it prevents you from that type of reckless, impulsive haste. Stuff like you can't have a toothpick in your mouth. Or you can't do this, you can't, okay? And there are many other things that come from what? The people of shirk and kufr. That's blatant, dead smack in your face on a daily basis. The concept of a logo. Where do logos come from? who made logos. Anyone know anything about graphic design? He knows there are principles and there are arkan, there are pillars of logos. And logos pertain to shapes, and shapes pertain to another science. And who were the people that were master craftsmen and left symbols and emblems and hidden signals, except for the what? The Masons. And what was their religion? What was their aqidah? Everything in our daily life is based off of a logo. Everything. The phone that you have, the car that you drive, the wristwatch on your arm, the glasses on your eyes has a what on it? A logo. And it symbolizes something. So Nikes are haram, but not Bluetooth. That's what? That's not consistent fiqh. And one of the things that we believe in HadithDisciple, those who like it, those who dislike it, is we try our best to be consistent. To be consistent and not to fall into the double standard. This is demonized, but this is totally, it's all right. Everyone understand this? Somebody asked me, Mickey asked me about what? Polo Ralph Lauren. What did I tell him? I said, I'm not saying what? Nothing about it. I'm not going to say what? Nothing about it. Why not? Because that's going to open up a what? A major can of worms. You can't wear polo. There's an image on it. It's a horse. It's this, it's that, so on and so forth. Then what? Are you willing to burn all your polo, your Ralph Lauren, your shirts that you can't find no more? From the what? The shirts that from the 90s. They don't even make them anymore. It's discontinued. So be realistic, be balanced. You understand? So therefore, I'm not saying that hanging plants are haram, but be careful what plants you do hang and be mindful. And perhaps it's best if you have plants in your home to hang a plant or grow a flower or something which is not orthodox to them. In other words, there are certain plants, as I said, that are totally unpopular on the market. And the reason why they are is because of what? They were never accepted back then in the days of superstition. So therefore, find a plant that doesn't pertain to the superstition and put it in your house. And a mixture among the other plants to prove that you're not what? Just to break the concept of their way. You understand what I'm saying? And the law knows best. Question says, well, I'm reading this, or just read it? He wants a clarification, or you just a benefit for the people?
He's not clear. I was talking to Abu Sajid about it, but I want to get some more clarity because I'm near the legend.
You can't get more clarity than Abu Sajid. He set you up, Abu Sajid. If you ask Abu Sajid, wallah, there's no point in you asking me. Next question. Take a question from online, inshallah. Question says, Assalamu alaikum. How can I submit a question privately through the email? muftihadith@gmail.com. Says here, KTT. Assalamu alaikum. It says Mike I from New York. My question is, how did you pursue memorizing the Quran? Memorizing the Quran, it's a yes and no answer. It's like studying other things, but it's not like studying other things. Whereas the Quran is miraculous. And every single thing about the Quran is miraculous. Everything about it. It's not conventional. Everything about the Quran is miraculous. It came down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Aziz al-Hakim, Al-Aziz al-Hamid. Alright? He sent down the Quran. How it's memorized, how it became widespread, how Muhammad learned it and taught it to his companions, how it was preserved, is miraculous. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has allowed certain things to take place regarding His book that will not take place regarding other books. And from that is total perfection. Like a Shafi'i, Imam Shafi'i said. He says Allah refuses for any book to be totally and absolutely 101% sound and perfect besides the Quran. There's no book that's absolutely from cover to cover totally perfect besides the Quran. Secondly is how facilitated it is, or how facilitated it is for one to memorize it. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Allah says we've made the Quran easy. So will anyone try to practice it and remember it? And from the miraculous nature of the Quran is that just how easy it is and how easy it comes, it can also leave you like that. And the Prophet ﷺ says, stick to the Quran, ta'ahad al-Quran. Review it, practice it, because it will leave you faster than a untied camel. A horse, you get off the horse, the first thing you do is you do what? Because it will go away, and you can't catch a horse. So if you don't practice the Quran and pray at night and do what you're supposed to be doing, you can't forget it. So the Quran is made easy by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no other book like that. But from the same aspect or from a different aspect, the Quran is something that is like another book which you have to practice. You have to learn the proper way of reading it. You have to learn the techniques of memorizing it. You have to have a teacher, and most importantly, you have to seek Allah's help, and you have to work hard. I can't give you no magical tip, no secret, no, hard work, sacrifice. And memory isn't something that's sweet. It doesn't taste good. It's bitter. It's like road work for a boxer. But in the 10th round, the 11th round, the 12th round, the 13th round is what you see the what? The benefits of that road work. Everyone understand this? So it has to come from hard work and sacrifice. And I'm not going to give you no magical story or no romantic story, except for just to do what? Work hard. Al-Muhim is constantly listening to it, inshallah ta'ala. When I first started studying Islam and Arabic and Quran and went overseas, we had tapes. And obviously a few CDs. Tapes and CDs. And we used to have tapes and CDs and listen to the Quran all the time. When you walk, when you drive, whatever you're doing, listen to the Quran. So nowadays it's even easier. You have wireless headphones. Forget Bluetooth headphones. They don't plug into the phone. Now you having to have no what? No cord whatsoever. What's stopping you from listening to the Quran when you're on your way to work? When you're coming home, when you're standing in line? Anything you do, listen to it. And familiarize yourself with it, with the nice subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we've spoken on this issue of how to memorize many times, and many playlists as well. Further.
Mufti, I have 2 questions. The first question is, my sister, she likes to burn sage. She's Muslim, alhamdulillah. She likes to burn sage in the house. She was told recently by some sisters that sage has like that is connected to something, you know, that we don't do as Muslims. Do you know anything about burning sage in the house? She does it for like a romantic reasons.
Clear.
The other question is, as far as memorization of the Quran, do you recommend for children to like have a composition style book that the page don't come out so that they can write what the portion that they're memorizing to like make a like
crystal clear. Jazakallah khairan. First question is regarding burning sage in one's house. A sister was advised not to burn sage in the house because it could be something pertaining to paganism or idolatry or shirk or sihr, something spooky, supernatural, calling on spirits, etc.
But she was given no proof.
Clear. She was given no proof, and she only does it because of the smell and the aroma, etc. Secondly is, would you recommend for children memorizing the Quran to have a black and white composition book in which the pages don't come out easily, in which they can write down what they memorized, etc. As far as the first question, this pertains to Ken's question about hanging plants. There is an origin of something, and there lies no doubt burning incense and sage and these things is a practice of pagans. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes, not on a movie, not in a documentary. When I was in India, and some of the places that we had to walk past or go into, and they would have a huge, gigantic bundle of incense, so much smoke, a whole cloud of smoke with their different shrines and their fake gods and goddesses. Okay, in the Far East is well known. There are many things that they do to summon angels. To summon idols. Not the idol, excuse me. The idol is dormant, the spirit. And it's a very important point on a side note to know the culture of shirk, to avoid it. And people, they just don't worship idols because the idol. It's obviously a piece of wood. It's a piece of metal, a piece of stone, bronze. It's their own construction. But it's a deeper concept of worshiping idols. And the people believe that the idol is a station, a place in which a spirit descends and comes down into. That's why they worship it, that's why they call upon it. They don't worship it, they know they made it from wood. But they believe that God, that ilah, that false deity, who lives eternally and helps or punishes, rewards or forsakes, when he's called upon and summoned, when he's given an offering, he does what? Or she does, it comes down, it's symbolic. So that is why certain people, they will ring a bell, they'll pull the bell, or they'll clap, or they'll eat sweets, or they will burn incense. So you cannot deny the reality that this concept of paganism. That's first and foremost. And if he says haram to burn sage, it's also haram to do this and that and so on and so forth. Everyone understand this? That's first and foremost. Secondly is, everyone doesn't burn incense and sage for the same reason. You burn it to call on the spirit. I burn it because I like the smell. It's a freshener. I like it. I like the way it feels. The smoke, it's soothing. It's a nice ambiance. Incense. You see what I'm saying to you? Oil burner. So everything that a Muslim does is not that which the kuffar does, or the kuffar do, or the kafir does. We have different reasons behind things that we do. Different reasons behind what? Things that we do. So if it's something that's specific to them, obviously it's a no-no. If it's something that's shared between both, you have your way and I have ours. We have ours. You do it for spirits, or for idol worship, or for sorcery. I do it because I like the smell. And that's how I was raised. This was the natural air freshener back in the day. In the masjid, there was no air wick. It was what? Incense in the back, right or wrong. You first become a Muslim, right? You go to the masjid in the bathroom. What the old school way is always what?
Incense.
Always incense. And the bathroom never smelled back in the day. Right or wrong, Abu Sajid? It always smelled good. The masjid always smelled good. Let alone the fact that, the concept of bukhur is something I also saw polytheists using. What fatwa would you get that it's haram to use bukhur in the Middle East? From what country? Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi? Who would say that it's haram to use bukhur? And unfortunately, somebody may say you can't use incense, you can't use sage, that's haram. But they go overseas, someone's house, and they do what? Pass around the what? The bukhur. Everyone understand this? And people, they use that to summon their spirits as well. So be in the night time, hopefully there's nothing wrong with that. As far as advising children to write things down in a certain type of book, etc., then the ulama of Islam, they have mentioned from the ways of bolstering what you've memorized or trying to memorize is writing it down. From the ways of solidifying it in your head is to put it on paper. And it's one of the reasons why when you get in trouble, teacher says, write on the board, I will not fight, I will not fight, I will not fight. For you to do what? Sink in your head. So it allows them to write something down. When you say it yourself, when you teach it to somebody else, when you hear it, like I just said, these are all ways of solidifying it. So me personally, what I would do for myself, or if I was teaching someone, I would try to get them to do everything. And as you do it for some time, pick the thing which is most useful to you. Me personally, teaching is an excellent way of revision for myself. And I'm not a good reviser, unfortunately. I'm not a good example for revision. Seriously, I should always make much more revision than what I need to. But alhamdulillah, I get to cheat and sneak when I what? Teach. Not only is it a reward and something that I enjoy and it's an obligation, it's my job, it's my occupation to teach what I try to devote my life to, but I also get another benefit, which is what? Refreshing the information for myself. You see what I'm saying to you? So use anything, writing it, whatever you got to do to get the point. And Allah knows best. Question says, SubhanAllah. Question comes from, it says, ZS from Tulsa, Bosnia. I asked about Mali's in Q&A marathon, and you said I sent it again and I did Sheikh, but I don't know. Did you get it? Barakallahu feek, Sheikh. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking about. Obviously, you can imagine, and I'm not saying this, just being honest, you can imagine there are a lot of questions all the time. So not only do I have limits on my human powers, but oftentimes questions do get lost or spammed or just lost in the mix. So then the next time, please let me look in the Q&A, the inbox tonight again, and see, inshallah, for your question. Make sure you put it in the subject, where you're from, so I know that's the specific question. Being that time, you can forgive me for my shortcomings. I hate today like I would hate to be kuffar again. Please save me and all the reverts. I mean, Jazakallah khairan, Sister ST. But please don't forget, guys, that the live stream, once more, is not a forum. Once more, it is not a what? It is not a forum. If you have a benefit, alhamdulillah, but not here. If it's something that you want to share, your personal experience, or you want to comment on something, alhamdulillah, but not what?
Here.
Not here. This is only for questions, nothing more. Nothing more. Please respect the format. It's only for questions. Something positive that you want to share, we welcome that, but not here. Ali, now what? Not here. Tayyib? Question says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Says, Allah musta'an. Please, sisters, this is not a forum to give you greetings to your sisters in Islam. Check. Question from the floor. Fadl Akhi.
I like the history that you gave about the Christmas. What sources did you use to obtain that information? Was it from books or was it from the internet? So we could get like that.
He know he's about to set himself up now, Mahdi. He said, what source did you use for the lecture? I could tell you, but I won't. And for several reasons. One reason is that you have to put in some effort. I've given you more than enough. I went beyond and above what was my basic duty. Number two is that me telling you is going to make you lazy and lethargic. Sweat a little, inshallah. Number three, if I gave you all of my secrets and tricks and trades, you wouldn't need me anymore. Right or wrong? Right, man? I don't need Mufti's class no more. I got my own information. I'm with him at the end of the day. Like any other thing, guys, there's always general information that you can find on Google. You can Google stuff, Wikipedia. And of course, I have my secret chest of books as well. Which only a few human eyes have seen. I said what? No. Few human eyes. Allah knows all of Allah's creation that have seen it besides humans. Could be insect. Ain't got to talk about a jinn or angel. I said human eyes. So you got to research a little bit, inshallah. Next question. Moving forward. It says here. It says, what are the methods to teach kids when these pagan holidays come around? Jazakallahu khairan. Please, inshallah, you have to mention your initials and where you come from, the format. Jazakallahu khairan. And first name, last name, or initials and where you come from. Jazakallahu khairan. AA from Miami, Florida. Assalamu alaikum Muslims. The hadith stating that preventing male discharge from entering the female's womb is minor, emphasized, authentic. It's well known hadith. Al-wada as a sukra. Next question says, from AA at St. Louis, Missouri, how should one let fear of the evil eye overwhelm them? How should we approach it moderately, like anything else? The shaitan cannot harm anyone unless Allah wills it. And just as Allah has given shaitan powers and strength and the ability to do things, He's also giving you protection. He's giving you protection. So you have a fierce enemy, a strong enemy, a fast enemy, an experienced enemy. But He's also giving you mechanisms for defense. He's giving you the ability to prepare yourself. And most importantly, He's giving you the unbreakable sword, an impregnable shield. And that is the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shaitan can't break through that. Ayatul Kursi. The three quarters of Hakada. So just as you have an enemy that's strong, Allah is giving you defense, which is what? Strong. Are you understanding this? And Allah knows best. Fadal.
Can you get mad and insult Shaitan?
Can you do what?
Can you get angry and insult Shaitan in any kind of way?
Can you get angry and then do what to Shaitan?
Insult Shaitan.
Insult him. Can you get angry and insult him? Like, is it permissible or recommended? Al-Muhim, there is a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ, he forbade the people from cursing the Shaitan when something happens and they become extremely angry, informing them that the Shaitan goes even harder. And when something else is mentioned, he becomes what? Asghar, smaller and more minute, in which he has no effect. So to curse the Shaitan in general is from the deen, and that's because Allah has cursed him. To hate the Shaitan is from the deen, because Allah hates him and His messenger and the believers. But to be busy with sending specific insults to the Shaitan isn't necessarily the most advisable thing. And that's because that energy can be used in other ways, in which you actually hurt Shaitan through actual action. Let alone when you become angry, you become impulsive and oftentimes irrational. Anger isn't the best emotion when it comes to saying what you're supposed to say. And that's why the Prophet told us not to become angry. It's because you do things, you say things that you really may not mean, or you may mean it, but it's something else that you could have done which was better. And if you can control your anger and your emotions, you're a very strong person. It takes a lot, not to get mad. People say, are you scared, or you're this, or you're that? That's easy to lash out, but not to lash out. And to stifle it, that's true strength. And what you have the ability to do is say something, but you don't. So cursing someone should be done on a clear mind. May Allah curse shaitan, not in an angry state. Because you may say something incorrect, let alone, are you really cursing him because you hate him for Allah's sake? Or are you cursing him for your own anger and rage? So I would avoid doing it, especially when the person is angry. And if you do curse shaitan, let it be what? Balanced. Not every single 5 seconds. May Allah curse shaitan. May Allah curse shaitan. May Allah curse shaitan. Should be balanced. And Allah Azza wa Jalla surely knows best. That's in brief. That's in brief. Question says, the evil eye. How should one, we mentioned that, holding 2 Jumu'ah prayers at an hour apart to accommodate work schedules. WB from Overland Park, Kansas. The ulama of Islam, the modern day scholars, and those of the relative class, they say it's permissible if it's a necessity. It's permissible to hold more than 1 Jumu'ah in one day at different times if it's a necessity. The masjid isn't big enough. Or the schedules of the Muslims prevent them from coming and praying on time. It's permissible. But it should be avoided, and it should not be done unless it's a necessity. And as we've said before, I mentioned before, forget holding 2 masjids an hour apart. Holding 1 Jumu'ah or 10 Jumu'ahs in one city, like this city and most other cities, is something that many of the scholars of Islam were extremely harsh against. Having this amount of masjids and this amount of Jumu'ahs and Eids is something they were very harsh against. And that's because it's not just about location, it's not just about distance, but it's about separation and individual personality. This is this masjid, this is that masjid, this is this ethnic group, this is this madhab, kala. So we don't need you, we do ourselves. That's the real attitude of the masjids. If you think about it, especially on the Eid or Jumu'ah, maybe throughout the week is different. You're in North Philly, I'm in South Philly, he's in Germantown, he's in Southwest. Of course. Driving 10, of course, is a hardship. But on the Eid, when everyone is taking off, you can't drive for 20 minutes and pray in a bigger congregation. These 3 masjids can't come together and congregate, and you're not, of course they can. You may find a masjid across you from another masjid. So that's problematic. And as we've mentioned before, there are many things that we do on a daily basis. Wa alaikum salam. As Muslims in the modern world, let alone in America and the Western countries, you'll find the ulama of Islam, they were harshly against. And from that is ta'addud al-juma' wal-jama'ah wal-ayat. Having 50 and 60 Eids on one day in one city. May Allah have all the Muslims. Fadl akhi.
I was looking on YouTube for the lecture you said you did before.
If you type in Bidnai Ta'ala, Western holidays, in light of Quran and Sunnah, /HadithDisciple plus HadithDisciple, you'll find it. So one way of looking. Another way is to go to the playlist. It's a playlist. Go to the library. It's all there. We made it for that purpose. Last but not least, if you didn't find it, worst come to worst, go to the oldest video and search and scroll through each and every one. It wouldn't be a loss. It wouldn't what? Inshallah. Seriously. It wouldn't be a loss. And there are many videos that I look for online in which I have to do what? Search for without an index from scratch. Or certain books that don't have particular contents. You got to do what? Read the whole book to find one thing. But how much other benefit are you going to come across? Let alone how much you're going to value and appreciate the work that you put forth for yourself. And Allah knows best. You know what Nike means? What does Nike mean?
It's a Greek god.
A Greek god. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khairan. Very good, lady. Kab.
Speaking about Nike, do you think people like worship like Nike because they know that it's like a Greek concept?
Question says, speaking about Nikes. Do you think people worship Nikes because it's a symbol of a Greek goddess? I don't think people worship Nike, let alone the Nike sign, the swoosh or whatever, for what it is today. I don't think that exists. But I do think people worship Nikes as far as materialism. Materialism, in which a person is willing to sell their soul for clothes and sneakers, or shoot somebody, or kill somebody. Or a woman gives up herself and sleeps with a man for something material. That's a form of worship as well. And the Prophet has told us about the servant of the gold coin, the servant of the silver shilling, the servant of the silk blanket, the servant people worship money, the dollar bill. And unfortunately, I know how many people have been killed because of what shoes or jacket. They give up their life, or take someone's life for something like that. May Allah help us all. Inshallah, this will be our last question. Our last 3 questions tonight. Question says, yes, that's true. Question says, Assalamu alaikum. From Jonathan in California. Inshallah, please mention the whole format. First name, last name, or first initial, last initial, city and state. Jazakallah khairan. AZQ from Colorado. What city? ZW, Jonesboro, Georgia. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. For the first time, my boss sent us a $100 Amazon gift card today, and it came at a time when I really could use it. Was it wrong to accept it? The ulama of Islam, they say there's a difference between accepting a gift on a holiday and giving a gift on a holiday. And they're very strong against giving a gift for a Christian or Jewish or pagan holiday. But that's not the same as accepting a gift. And the Athar, the narrations of the Sahaba, that they accepted gifts from Ahlul Kitab during certain festivals and holidays. They took the gift. And it wasn't necessarily haram. So, inshallah ta'ala, if you needed it, hopefully there's nothing wrong with it. If you don't need it, do without it, but it's not necessarily haram. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best for them.
Is it from the proper etiquette of a student of knowledge to apply everything he learns instantly, or to still move in steps, each step at a time?
Question says, is it from the proper etiquette of a student of knowledge to apply everything that he learns immediately, or should he take his steps, gradual steps? I'll say yes and no. Yes and no. Being hungry, having zeal, having strong iman, and being pure and clean, and just wanting to implement it and do away with your sins and this and that is a beautiful thing. And anyone who sought knowledge, he knows it's nothing like the first taste of it. Nothing like it. When you first become a Muslim, you do anything. They tell you to do this, do that, you'll do it. Your iman is strong. Alright? And the same applies to seeking ilm. The first taste of knowledge. Remember the first time you went overseas? The first time you got to Mecca or Medina? The first time you knew Surah Thalatha? The first time you studied Kitab al-Tawheed? The first time you started learning Arabic? It's nothing like that feeling. So taking what you learn and implement it, that's the default. That's the asl. That's the asl. So that's the yes part. However, the no part is that there's certain things of knowledge which remain theory. Everything from knowledge isn't practical. There's certain things that are just for you to know and not to do. Or there's certain things which you should do, but it may come in a way or the expense of something which is more important. So you have to know the practical way. And that's what Allah Azza wa Jalla clearly mentions. He teaches them the book and the sunnah. Allah clearly mentions that يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ. He recites to them His verses. Reciting to them is teaching them. Why does Allah also say وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ? And He teaches them, meaning the physical tafsir of those ayat. So you have to know what is to be done and what is not to be done. What's the strong, what's the weak. And this cannot be done through just a book. This cannot be done by just sitting with someone and leaving. This can only be done if you're under someone's wing, under the tutelage in which someone is actually teaching you and training you and showing you the hands-on ropes of being a Muslim man who's a talib al-ilm. And that's why it's very important to do that. So you read your books, you listen to your lectures, you sit in a class. You may sit in a class with a teacher you have no relationship with, and that's fine. But it has to be at least one person that you have a tight, close-knit relationship with. And you can ask him an embarrassing question. You can talk to him about a really personal issue. Or he can have the courage and keep it real with you and say, I saw you doing that, you shouldn't do that. And not like somebody who's a stranger who might feel offended or, you see what I'm saying to you? So therefore, you implement what you learn unless it's proven to be specific. Unless it's proven to be what? So the default is that you implement it. That's the default. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I believe those are the last 3. If I'm not mistaken, there's one more. Did you find the video, Yaqi?
No, I got it.
Alhamdulillah. The last question of tonight, it says, UK, Durham, North Carolina. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. May Allah bless you. What does one do if they want to get married but they have issues with their wali and he told her that things would never be good again? Any wali who says that things will never be good again, I think you should get rid of that wali. I don't think that's nasiha. To tell someone that things will never be good again. First of all, how do you know? Are you in control? Are you in charge? You are a servant. You are a slave of Allah. You have no knowledge of what's going to happen tomorrow, what will and what will not be. Let alone even if you felt strongly or adamantly about that, man, what type of advice is that? You're doomed. Collapse. It'll never be good for you. What type of advice is that? What type of father or brother or person would say that? So, if me personally, someone says something like that, I wouldn't have them as my wali. Someone who has that type of negative, pessimistic way of looking at life. You made a mistake. Yes, I told you not to marry that brother. You didn't listen to me. You went to follow your lusts. You were blinded by how he looked, and you didn't listen to me. You're going to have to sacrifice now. It's not going to be as easy to get married again. You may have to suffer a little bit. You made a major mistake. But inshallah, in due time, Allah's mercy will overcome all. Heck of that. You see what I'm saying to you? Or I told you not to get divorced from that brother. Why did you leave him? I told you to keep that brother. He was a good brother. You didn't want to listen. It's going to be difficult finding a brother of that caliber. Maybe you say that. Or a sister, or whatever. It'll be difficult for you to find a brother like Fulan. Maybe. But to say that it will never be good again, no. That's un-Islamic. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Jazakumullahu khairan. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina Muhammad. The brothers who didn't get a question answered tonight, you can come up and ask them now off of the recording. Inshallah.
I'm sorry, sir. Check. I wanted to ask.